Hi, Jack. Welcome to the We Chat Tech podcast. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you doing?
I'm very well. I'm very well.
Good.
Thanks for coming on board and being one of our guests. For all the listeners out there, it'd be good to understand a little bit more about yourself first. So, if you could give a short intro on Jack.
So I'm Jack Beauchamp-Stansfield. I am currently the DevOps manager at Formula One. Um, Started there as a DevOps engineer a few years ago, and have slowly grown as the team has expanded and we've taken on more responsibility. So, um, yeah, I'm very excited to be here. So,
Nice, good
yeah.
stuff. Good stuff. Look, first, let's dive into more of your career journey, I guess,
Mm.
and sort of explore what sort of got you into tech firstly, like what sort of pulled you into it, I guess.
So for me, my journey's a bit of an odd one, to be honest. So at school, I was always into science and all that kind of stuff. And my school, while an amazing school, didn't really do computing. It was very old fashioned. It was all about classics and history and all the real subjects. None of these newfangled computers and stuff. So they had amazing computing facilities, but they didn't really do anything with them other than teach you how to use PowerPoint and stuff. So um, I started off doing science. So I went to university to study chemistry, and while I was there, realised it wasn't for me. So I came back to London and was sort of thinking, what on earth do I do with myself now? I've gone off on that journey. It's not gone quite to plan. Um, how do I progress? Like, what's the next steps? And I spent a lot of time trying different things, but ultimately I kept falling back on computing because I was a nerd. So I spent my spare time as a teenager playing video games and building PCs and all that kind of stuff. So when I sort of fell out the other side of university without a degree, I was like, well, what can I actually do that's useful? And computers were the sort of my go-to thing. So I started looking for jobs in computing, and I got initially got a part-time service desk role for a marketing agency. And then sort of that grew into a full-time role, and everything kind of snowballed from there, and slowly but surely started to take responsibility for things like our web hosting and stuff like that. And then had a bit of a fork in the road after that job. My son had just been born, and I was looking for something new. Needed a bit of a change, a bit more money, all those kind of usual existential crises you have when you have a child. And I was going for there were two jobs sort of in the pipeline. One was with Monzo, actually, in a service desk sort of role, and they weirdly had a very similar stack to ours, which was quite an unusual stack. So I was like, oh, this would be a really easy transition, really good fit, like technology wise. And then the other one was for a small company out in Essex, where I live. It was very sort of AWS focused, and I sort of
To the leap.
yeah, one was a short term gain that would have been really easy in the short. It would have been a really good good bump in pay, good move, short term, but it wasn't really heading in the direction I wanted. So I took the other one, and it was
Yeah.
very much a side grade, but it set me on the path that was the path I actually wanted to be on. So, and then from there, I've worked in numerous AWS houses, doing all kinds of cloud engineering, DevOps engineering sort of things. So yeah, I sort of came from a wayward nerd via the service desk into a sort of cloud engineering and DevOps kind of role. So
Yeah, yeah. But what would you say that was like the pivotal moment that sort of shaped your career so far? Would you say that transition to that AWS role, the short term sort of
yeah, I was like, don't get me wrong, there's service desk is amazing for a lot of things, but I think after a while you start to lose patience. And I was starting to get to that point where I was just like, I just want to play with computers and do cool things, and I don't want to deal with um, the printers not working and all those kinds of things. And like I say, no shade to the people doing it, because it's hard work and it's crucial, but I think everyone that's done that job gets to a point where they want to move on to something else. So
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you evidently you moved on to obviously DevOps, and you've been in the space for God nearly 5 years, right? As sort of
uh,
in DevOps,
yeah.
also
Well,
six.
my son's 8 in December, so yeah, 7, 8 years.
Yeah, yeah. So you've been in the space for a long time. So I mean, how or firstly, what does DevOps mean to you, I guess, and how have you seen DevOps evolve over from when you started using it?
That is an almost impossible question. Means something completely different in every organization I've worked
Yeah.
in. So, um, in a, it's yeah, it's the trickiest thing with it is it's such a multidisciplinary kind of field that it can mean basically anything. You can be anywhere from sort of a cloud engineer to doing infrastructure and all that kind of stuff to almost like a release engineer doing sort of release management for other and like anywhere on that spectrum in between. Um, in my current role, we've got a very multidisciplinary team, which is really good. It sort of lends us to being a bit of a Swiss Army knife team. So, and we're always the team that's not afraid to get stuck in and have a go. If someone's not quite sure how something should be done, we'll just have a crack at it and see if we can get anywhere with it. So, yeah, it's a strange role. It really is, because it's equal parts sort of human engineering, like uh
I feel like everyone's got different perceptions of it as well.
yeah,
I think it's really weird because we had another podcast yesterday with Matteo as well. And for instance,
mm,
for him it was very much on like the DevOps methodology, like
mm,
how do you refine processes? How do you
yeah.
sort of make the company more efficient and
There's a
sort of
huge amount of
cost
that.
effective, I guess,
Yeah,
in
it's
a way.
it's all ultimately it's all about facilitating things, making people.
Job's easier, right?
Yeah, my mate Ben has a good, who I think has a good way of putting it. Is that we're sort of force multipliers. We do work to enable other people to do their work more quickly, more efficiently, safer, with building in processes, guardrails, like all that good stuff to enable them to move faster. So it's a, but at the same time, we're getting involved in stuff for the race focused teams. We're getting stuff in for. We're talking to like the finance department about, we're talking to all kinds of teams across the business, because the IT department sort of sees it almost as a business function on the sort of automation side of things as well. So we're really getting into all kinds of parts of the business. So it's very much not just it's not just a computing thing. It's not just a software development thing. It's not. It's all, like you say. It's all about efficiencies and process and. Um,
I feel like that's what a lot of people are having. I feel like it was different. I feel like a few years, not even a few years, like even 4 or 5 years back. I
mm,
feel like it is more sort of based around the people now. Like you're saying, it
there
is
is a
it's
lot of
how
people
you sort
here.
of collaborate to make it happen, right? Because
Yeah.
everyone does say like, look, DevOps is a culture and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, everyone does have different perceptions, I guess,
Building that culture
into
is
what they're seeing.
a huge part of the battle.
There you go. There you go. So look, from yourself, I mean, you've been at F1, which is obviously really cool. We'll touch on that a little bit later, but you've been there for a good while. What made you sort of transition into a sort of a leadership role, I guess? I mean, what was your sort of thought process behind that? And I mean, is leadership, like, do you enjoy leadership? Because I know obviously you say
Yeah.
you're a techie at heart, so
It's a weird. If I'm honest, one of the best things about it is having something else to do. Um, as in, historically I get quite bad tech burnout sometimes. Like you're in it all the time. It's always changing. It's always moving. You're always having to keep up with all the late. And sometimes you just start to get a little bit like just frazzled with it.
yeah.
So actually having the guys to sort of all that extra process to go through, having to look at budgets, having to look at things, while obviously budgeting is nobody's favorite. It is just something a little bit different. So I'm not just all in on the one thing, because I find that if I am just all in on that, it sometimes, it starts to take its toll a little bit, and you start to just kind of, your brain starts to melt sometimes,
Yeah.
or at least mine does.
No, it's good to obviously to almost have it's almost just an escape, obviously, from the tech that
Mm.
you're saying, because obviously it does
Obviously, I
get
still
quite
love the
hectic.
tech side of things, and that is like the part I most enjoy about my job. But also just having a different like overview of things, trying to sort of have a more sort of more strategic oversight of what we're doing as a team, rather than just sort of focusing on, I need to get this feature out, or I need to deploy pipelines for these guys, or whatever it may be on the day. So
Do you still stay like very much hands on from your part?
yeah, I'm still finding the balance. So I've only been in a managerial role since April, because that's when we do the renewals for the year. And to start with, everything just hard over to like meetings and management and stuff, because my manager obviously was like, right, well, so there's I'm part of the cloud and DevOps like team, and obviously there's a cloud team and a DevOps team. There's a lot of overlap between the two. But we sort of have our sort of specialties within that sort of overlapping middle ground. And so he was overseeing both sides, and then but was obviously with a team of nearly 10 between both sides of the disciplines. It was way too much for just him to be doing. So he stepped back, and he stepped up and then split it into two, and that was a much more manageable amount for the both of us, I think. So but he was very obviously excited to just be like, right, all these meetings, over to you guys, have fun. And so my calendar for the first couple of months was just wall to wall meetings. But I've slowly started to claw some of it back into, doing a bit more technological work. But I'm still trying to find that balance, because, I try and block my calendar, but at the same time,
You can't.
can't always meetings need to happen.
It's like you said though. It's you're a techie at heart, right? So you want to stay techie as well, I guess.
Yeah, I
I
think
think
it's
when we
really
speak to
important.
everyone that's like managers and directors, and they
Yeah.
always say the same thing. Like it's they love what they do, and it's the same. Like you see from yourself, obviously, you love what you do, but it's they still want to do the like get their hands dirty and just
Yeah, and I think it's really important to keep your hand, keep your eye on the ball, or where, keep yourself in that brain space, even just a little bit, even if you're stacked with meetings and managerial responsibilities, and you're doing, just even if you just pick up a couple of bits of work a month or whatever, just to, you know, remember how Terraform works, or remember, refresh your Python skills a little bit, or just, you know, pick up something that's not super time critical, that, if you get pulled off into a bunch of meetings, or suddenly you come in that day and realize your calendar is just done. It doesn't matter if that thing happens next week or in a couple of weeks' time, because, I think if you tactically choose your own tasks a little bit, you can keep yourself in the game without, causing a you don't want to be picking up important tickets that need to get through quickly, and then have, cause trouble for your own guys, because everyone's going, well,
just like the little bits that no one really cares about. This is no,
yeah,
it's really funny. Everyone says the same thing. It's like just like because obviously tech is like evolves so like
mm,
quickly, and there's updates on everything like all the time. Like you
oh,
have to sort of
yeah.
you want to see what's going on as well, right? You want to stay
Yeah,
relevant, I guess.
100%. That's one thing I think we do quite well. It's something that I've sort of started recently with the guys, is trying to have like a quarterly. I called the first one like a DevOps day, where we all try and get together in person in a meeting room somewhere. For us, it was up in our central London office, because we had Ben coming down from Manchester, um, and just like going, right, what cool
Brainstorm.
stuff have you seen? What have you got? What's that tool that you've been wanting to have a look at for a while? Let's have a sort of little hack day on it, and just see, is there a use case for it here? And if there is, then we can, have a bit of a play with it within the confines of the day. And then we have something to show, like my manager or whatever afterwards, going, don't know if you'd heard of this, but here's a cool thing that we've done, and actually, I think it could be really, could bring real value or whatever. And I think having the freedom to play with those new toys is just as important as anything else, because, like you say, it moves so quickly that you.
It's a really cool process to have. I mean, usually, like, obviously, smaller companies are more sort of, fluent with it, I guess, because
Mm.
they have that freedom. But yeah, 100%. Like, it's there's so many tools like all the time, like that just get created, and you're like, well, what's this? Like, there's always new ways of sort of
Yeah,
simplifying things or making things faster for sure.
I'm
But we'll
always,
touch on that in a bit for sure.
you know,
In
always taking notes and.
your thoughts on AI in a bit.
Oh yeah, I'm always.
But let's talk a little bit more about away from tech, I guess. So from your side, I guess being a part of you know F1, very obviously high intense, sort of busy sort of environment. What keeps you sort of busy outside of tech, I guess, and what are you, I guess, passionate about?
I mean, my family keep me extraordinarily busy. I have a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old, so they're both quite full on. My daughter's recently gotten into K-pop Demon Hunters, and all I've heard is her walking around the house belting out K-pop Demon Hunters. So they keep me super busy, and yeah, they're fantastic. But outside of sort of family life, cooking. Uh, I've recently gotten back into Warhammer, which I loved as a kid, but I just haven't had the time or the space. But we've recently been able to put a little summer house at the end of the garden, so there's now like a protected quiet space where we could just sort of go and relax. Um, and yeah, for a while I was super into my cycling, but that's fallen by the wayside a little bit with the family. So,
Uh,
but I think it is, and obviously, video games and just tinkering. I've got a home lab because every good nerd should have a home lab, uh, and it's hard to find that balance. But I think having things to do not on the computer, not walking the dog, all that kind of stuff, just getting out and away from the screens for a bit, and not being all tech all the time. As much as you love tech, you need.
I think I think that's what. Yeah, I think that's obviously what I was going to follow up on after, because obviously working on tech, and it's all a bit much sometimes, like we said, right?
Yeah.
So from your side, I mean, how do you personally sort of manage with, I guess, the balance and well-being of, like, not burning out? Like we sort of had a little sort of chat a little bit earlier on
Yeah.
that.
So for me, work-life balance is super important and is kind of a challenge. I think everyone faces, but it's one that certainly Formula One faces sometimes. Those race weekends are long. We have to be in a couple of hours before the first session and stay until probably an hour after the race is finished, just to make sure everything goes smoothly. Luckily, the DevOps team don't currently have to do that, but we help out and we tag along to a few races a year. But it's not mandatory for us, because if we've done our job right, everything should already be in place from before change freeze. So, but yeah, we one of the things that my first boss, I came in for my first day at that service desk role, and my manager said something that's sort of stuck with me ever since, which was, it sort of centers around expectations management and stuff. But he said, you're paid to be here from 9:30 till 6. You get an hour for lunch. Get here for 9:30, leave at 6, and take your hour for lunch. Sometimes you'll have to stay late. Sometimes you'll have to work a weekend. Like, don't grumble. But if you set the expectation, the culture at that place was very much, especially because it was a sort of marketing firm, was very much any hour of the day the client gets in touch, the client gets a response. And he said, don't set that expectation early that, end of the working day, you'll respond tomorrow. And excuse me, it will surprise people for the first couple of weeks, and then that's fine. And then that is what they will expect from you. That is where that line in the sand will be drawn. And it's really easy, especially when you're doing, cool new projects, doing exciting stuff, playing with something that you're really excited to get stuck into. It's really easy to get drawn into working till 7, or, you know, popping in, doing a couple of hours on a Saturday morning just because you've got a bit of time. And it's so easy to do, and I never want to discourage it, because if someone's that enthusiastic, it's great. But I try and reinforce that, you know,
You don't need to.
you don't need to. You're not expected
Yeah.
to. If you want to do that off your own back, you know, totally fine. But I think it's really important for everyone to have um, time away from things, because yeah, setting that expectation is key. Yeah. So
Nice.
one thing I've said to all of the guys when they've started is exactly the same thing that that my first boss said to me, is, you know, get here when you're supposed to be here, take your lunch break, leave on time, and then occasionally we'll have to do some out of hours work. We'll have to do, you know, I don't know, update a critical system at 8 o'clock at night, or sometimes we'll have to come in and help with some of the race deployments or whatever. And, you know, when those things come round, then do them with good grace, because, you know, they're not the norm, and we're all trying to help out at the end of the day. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Nice. Have you ever experienced burnout from your side, or
Oh
how,
yeah.
how have you handled it from your end? I guess is
um Trying to distance myself from it a little bit. So usually it's a sign I need a holiday, if I start to get burnt out. But sometimes, you know, sometimes a holiday doesn't fix it. So sometimes there have been times where I've been burnt out for non-tech reasons, and I think if you get to that stage, it's probably time to find a new job. Being brutally honest, like, you know, sometimes it's not the tech that's causing the mental strain, and in those cases, I think you just move on. But when it is tech, then yeah, just try and minimize it outside of work as well, I think. Because obviously, if you're, you know, you're hacking away at Kubernetes clusters all day, then you're hacking away in your home lab all night, and then you're, you know, playing video games all evening. Or, you know, if you just live on the screen, like in front of your desk the whole time, you do just start to go a bit stir crazy. And I think, you know, go out, do something different. Um,
change the scenery.
yeah, change the scenery. Just try and break the cycle, because it's such an easy sort of spiral to just fall into, where you're just always doing.
Yeah.
Always
From
doing
yourself, I
the
mean, I know you've been managing not for too long still, but you know, obviously you've been doing it for like say 6 months or so. Um, have you? I know you said you sort of introduced very similar things when you started, you know, in tech, in the sense of, you know, here's the time, here's your lunch, and you know, basically
Mm.
just take care of yourself, basically.
Yeah, yeah.
From what you're saying, have you sort of experienced anything from the time you've been managing so far where you needed either to support the team, or is there any sort of initiatives in F1 where they support that sort of, you know, like if someone is struggling a little bit, like what do they do, or where do they go, sort of?
I've not had to deal with it, if I'm honest, because I think my guys are pretty good at looking after themselves. It's something that they've, well, at least, yeah, they've actually said to me is, you know, thank you for setting that expectation, because where they've worked before, no one's actually said to them, like, here's what we're
Yeah.
expecting from you.
Well, you've
Um,
set the scene, right? You sort of said like,
yeah, but
yeah,
if I think the sort of person that ends up, well, often the sort of person that ends up in a role like a DevOps role is someone who likes to help, is eager to sort of, you know, get stuck in, solve the problem, that kind of thing. And so when you've got that kind of personality trait, it's very easy to just get sucked in and do it all the time. So there have been a few times where I've had to step in, and I've seen, you know, I'll be cooking dinner for the kids, and I'll see a message pop up on my phone at sort of 7:30, and then I'll see one of the guys respond, and I'll be like, and then I'll sort of check in and see what's going on, and be like, no, they'll deal with this tomorrow. You know, this is not a critical outage. This is not something that needs to be fixed right now. This is something we'll deal with tomorrow.
yeah. Nice. I mean, look, let's dive a little bit more into sort of the tech side
Yeah.
and the DevOps front, I guess. So, I mean, from your side, I mean, obviously you've been in DevOps for a long time, and you know, even at F1, it was, you know, the whole time you was doing DevOps, right? So, I
Mhm.
guess from your perspective, how do you sort of apply DevOps to the unique environment of F1, I guess? Like how does it benefit the F1, I guess, applying DevOps?
Yeah, that is the $1 million question. So when I started, there had been a DevOps engineer before working in the software team, but it hadn't sort of worked out because I think the business decided it was more of an IT function. So they then recruited in for DevOps engineer in the IT space, and yeah, to start with, everything was super siloed. It was very much software would put in a ticket, they'd send the thing, it would go across, cloud team would deploy it, and it was very, there was no bridge. So sort of starting out, that was kind of my first thought and first goal, was to try and build that bridge. And now I think we have a really good relationship going with the software development guys. And we have regular catch-ups. We ask them for feedback. We ask them for what they want out of the platform that we're building for them, so that we can further accelerate their needs. And I think we've been trying to track all our metrics like good engineers should, and all the sort of DORA metrics and stuff. And based on those metrics, we are firmly in the elite category in terms of cadence of delivery and speed of throughput and stuff. But I think where we've really helped out, certainly from the software side, has been we've been trying to enable self-service for them as much as possible, obviously with guardrails and stuff. But so for certain things that used to take them 4 days and a bunch of back and forth on a ticket and 2 different tickets with 2 different teams to actually get the thing deployed out, they can now sort of self-serve that. And same with their app deployments and their config deployments and stuff. We're helping automate all that, so reducing errors. And something that I think a lot of people don't realize is, while Formula One is ostensibly a broadcaster, and we do all the TV stuff for the races, we also provide a lot of the infrastructure and a lot of the backbone that supports that. So stuff like the timing system is provided by us. So there's a lot of critical deployments of config and stuff that happens every event that we've helped to automate, and that's just enabled people to get their configs out quickly, validate them quickly, and make sure that they're going to work. And they know that once they've deployed out a good config and validated that it works, that it's done. And it takes I think they used to take the timing guys 3 days or whatever to go through that process, and now they can do it in like half an hour. So things like that, where it magnifies and multiplies over the course of if you're doing 25 races a year, or 24, is it?
I mean, it adds up, doesn't it?
It adds up really quickly. Actually, we're trying to capture those metrics as well when we implement a new automation for people, or when we implement a new system that allows people to do things more quickly or more efficiently or whatever. We're trying to capture those metrics, because ultimately IT is a weird space where you're sort of a sunk cost. So actually being able to say, look, well, actually what we've done here is we've made this so much more efficient that it used to take 2 engineers 3 days. It now takes 1 engineer 20 minutes. Those kind of metrics are super important for, justifying everything.
So I was going to go on from that as well. So, I mean, obviously, like, tech is so constantly evolving. And do you know what? We spoke to quite a few people, and everyone's saying the same thing, I guess, but it's becoming so complex. Like, it's almost like deciding what's needed and what's not, and not overcomplicating like an environment, I guess.
Yeah.
So the question would be from your side. I mean, what's your sort of perceptions on that? And also, how do you sort of decide the tooling that you would use to not overcomplicate an environment, I guess?
So I 100% agree with those people. But something I've always valued and always tried to focus on as an engineer is simplicity. it's very easy to build a complicated system. It's actually quite hard to build a simple system that does the same thing. And so you go, so I've had a lot of times where, actually, especially from a sort of senior or now management sort of eye, looking at how things are being put together and trying to make sure that they're simple, robust, scalable. Because if you build things in a way that makes them easy for you to develop on in the future, you're already onto a winner. Whereas I've run into a lot of systems where they've built it in a particular way to fit this current use case, but haven't thought about, well, what if actually we want to then add on, this other system, or if it would be really useful if it interfaced with that. So I think, yeah, there's no particular tooling that we use to do that. We have sort of internal reviews. We do well architected reviews on all of our systems that we deploy, where we all just basically say, here's what I've done. What do you reckon? And, we try and keep it low, like no blame, no judgment, no nothing, but we have a set of criteria that we use internally for, how scalable is the platform, how reliable is the platform, how simple is the platform. And then the person will just sort of present what they've done, and then we'll sort of ask questions. We'll be like, have you thought about maybe if you did it in this way, that would actually reduce this, the cognitive complexity of this system, or it would bring this more into line with other systems that we've built. So I think I think you still need a bit of a human touch with that, because
I feel like it's very like I feel like you have to constantly analyze it, right? Like you say, it's because if you don't, and you keep adding to like tools and whatnot to the stack, it just becomes too much, and it becomes too difficult to not just manage, but I guess the whole environment just becomes I guess unmanageable in that sense. Like you said, it's not scalable, it's not simple.
Yeah,
It gets out of hand
surprisingly quickly as well. I think as well, if you don't have that regular sort of introspection, and if you don't try and keep one eye on the sort of the wider environment and how the things fit together, it's incredibly easy to end up with a sort of organic sprawl where just everything is kind of a mess. We've all been there. You sort of lift the rug and go, oh God, why did I do that? But then
put the rug down.
But then, sometimes I've run into this when I first started as well. Sometimes actually, the systems were put in place with the best of intentions, but actually they've sort of organically grown and they've just sort of gotten way out of control. And sometimes it's actually easier to go, let's just start again. Let's give ourselves a clean slate and let's do it properly from the beginning. And if we build it all in at the start, we'll be fine. And I think in that time at the start of a project as well is really important, because it's very easy to start building without an idea of what you're trying to build. And that's where the real danger lies. I think if you start building with no plan, you just get sprawl.
That's it. It becomes chaos, doesn't it? Goes crazy.
Chaos engineering.
There you go. Look, let's sort of move on a little bit towards, I guess, AI, because AI is sort of everywhere. So, I mean, what's your sort of opinion on AI? I guess, and I guess you use it, and how does it sort of help if you do on your sort of day to day?
AI is such a tricky question. I think, well, my team is at least partially responsible for AI at Formula One, so we're heavily involved with it. We're putting together guidance frameworks and things like that, and model evaluation platforms and stuff, so we can actually have some kind of metrics to base our opinions of these things on. And I think AI is an incredible tool when used correctly. I think it's a very dangerous tool when used badly. I think it's also very easy to become overly dependent on. It's one of my concerns. It's why I don't personally use it a huge amount, because I think it's very easy to start relying on it too much, and then you lose your own muscle memory. and I've seen it happen, and I've seen the weirdest example I saw. I was watching a YouTube video about an AI, how to identify like AI writing, and one of the examples in that video, someone had written a YouTube comment, then worried it wasn't good enough, then run it through ChatGPT to then improve the YouTube comment to then post an AI, and I'm just like, a YouTube comment is the most like throwaway
Basic thing, isn't it? It's just,
thing. Like it couldn't matter less. And I think it's a real danger of it eroding your sort of confidence in your own abilities.
I
So
think it's an easy way out, isn't it? It's like
yeah,
I feel like for me, I'm exactly the same, Jack. For me, I don't use it as much as I should. Like if anything, I hardly use it at all. For me, I'll be honest. I play a lot. I play a lot of sport, and I get a lot of injuries. The
mm,
way that I use it, and I always say this, is it's really weird, but before going to the doctor, I take a picture of like where, for instance, the pain is,
yeah,
and it's unbelievably accurate of
really,
detecting what's wrong. Honestly, I did my ankle.
yeah,
I did my ankle a couple months ago, and I did two ligaments.
yeah.
I tore one and I stretched the other, and it got the exact two ligaments before I went to see the doctor. Like it's
That's
unbelievably accurate. And do you know what? Anything like that, well, if it hurts or anything, I use it for that instead
yeah,
of like using it for work. That's my use case
yeah.
basically.
Don't get. There are so many use cases where it is incredibly useful. So we, as part of our partnership with AWS, we built what's it called, root cause analysis tool, that uses like AI agents to interrogate logs and stuff. So you could sort of say, are there any issues with X application? And it will go off, query CloudWatch, look in various locations, come back and say, oh yes, I can see that, would you like me to generate a Jira ticket for you? And for things like that, where actually, you know, if you're not the expert in the field, but you've noticed something's wrong, something like that is an incredibly powerful tool.
Yeah.
Or same with, like coding assistants and stuff. I think used correctly, again, incredibly powerful tool. They're incredible at boilerplate. They're good at summarizing. But I think making sure you're using the tools in the right way is really key, because they're also incredibly capable of generating absolute nonsense. So
I was gonna say, so how would you have you tried it before with this sort of the coded scripting sort of AI side of things? Because
only a
again,
little bit.
a lot of
We've
people
built,
say it's not like very accurate. Like it's accurate. It
yeah.
helps with the core basis, right? If you
When it
know what you're
first was
doing.
getting popular, I tried it out. I was trying to build I hadn't built what was it for? I hadn't done it. It was a yarn build or something for a dashboard of some sort, and I hadn't really used yarn, so I was like, well, out of interest, let's see. Everyone's excited about these things. I said, generate me a yarn build for RCI platform, and it spat out what looked very convincing. The commands all sounded fairly legit. Whacked it in, error. I was like, that's weird. I wonder why. And because I didn't really know the platform, and I think that's where the danger comes in, is it'll just go, oh, here you go, and be very confident in its response. But actually, I probably spent more time troubleshooting what was wrong with that response than I would have if I just gone and read the docs myself. And so, yeah, I don't use it loads. We have built an internal coding assistant that we're starting to use. It's in early beta at the moment,
Nice.
which we're hopefully going to start getting some good data in from. But
Yeah.
we're using it across the business. We're using it within the team.
I
But
feel like it's like you say, it has to be still human managed, I guess, right?
yeah, I
It's
still
probably the
think you need a certain level of
human
expertise
touch.
to even just evaluate what it's doing, because it's very easy for it to spit out something that looks convincing, and then when you try and run it, it just completely fails.
I feel like from a what's your sort of idea, I guess, from a because like you said, I guess it's very much like if you're too dependent on it, it's a very bad thing, I guess, as well. But from a someone that's trying to get into the industry or still quite a junior,
Mm.
would you think what would you say like, or have you seen? I don't know if you've interviewed or whatnot, but if you've seen engineers like using AI to sort of almost, I don't know, like push their abilities higher than what they actually are because they're trying to almost
Yeah,
use
it's
too much
it's
AI.
it's a real tricky one. I think I've seen it used incredibly well. Um, I
Like,
think it.
I feel like for the I don't want to say younger, but almost for like
Yeah, I'm terrified.
if the
I
juniors
can't.
and the sort of the less experienced, I guess.
Yeah,
If you
I
again, like
think
you
the
said, if you don't
more
troubleshoot
experienced
it, it's
engineer
going to
you
be
are,
wrong.
the more powerful the tool is, because you have the ability to evaluate the output. I think for a junior, while it's really tempting, really attractive because it lets you run arguably before you can walk, you might trip yourself up in the long run because actually you also might not. Like, it really varies, but I think there is a danger that you could, you know, you fall into just using AI as a crutch rather than using it as a tool to accelerate your development. And I think it's a fine line for sure.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. I mean, I was going to ask you, but you've already sort of mentioned part of it already. But like, what would your concerns be about AI, and it is very much so, like you said, being too dependent on it, I guess.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a really easy trap to fall into as well because, you know, oh, I could write all this Python, or I could just have it just, have a code bot or whatever, bomb it out into my VS Code and I'll be done in 5 minutes. But I think, it's like with all things, I think, and coding is no different. Like if you don't, it's the same reason I think it's important to keep in with the tech stuff when you're doing management is if you don't flex the muscle, it will waste. Like you will slowly lose that skill. And if you rely too heavily on AI, I think you can start to just lose your own skill level. Um, so I think yeah, like I've said before, when it's used well, it can really accelerate development. When it's used badly, it can quite quickly become a bit of a crutch that is probably detrimental in the long term. So
yeah. Has it started raining at yours by any chance?
no, my dog started scratching herself.
Ah, what dog have you got?
She is what is she? She's a Central Asian village dog, according to her DNA test.
Oh wow,
She's a complete mutt, basically. She's the purest of the mutts. Um,
I've got a golden retriever.
oh, lovely.
He's literally right here, just
Yeah,
asking for
so I
attention.
did a DNA test on her because I couldn't work out what she was. She's got a little bit of sort of greyhound snout, a little bit of greyhound tail. No, it's not greyhound. German Shepherd tail, a little bit of, she's quite white,
The Ruffian.
kind of a bit of everything. I was like, what on earth? Like, what are you made of? So, one of my colleagues, other halves, runs a dog walking business. So they've done a bunch of like DNA tests on their dogs out of interest, and he
You
gave me.
never know. You might have like a werewolf or something. Just
Yeah, so I did a little DNA test on her, and it just came back. And to be fair, I was so convinced it was uh, not a scam, but it was going to be led astray that I didn't even upload a photo of her. And the little drawing that came back of a Central Asian village dog on the report was pretty much exactly what she looks like. So I was,
no. There you go. There you
oh,
go.
is this legit? Fair
I
enough.
wonder how they use it. Maybe it might be like there has to be some sort of AI based in that as well. I
Yeah,
guess.
I don't know. Yeah, I think. Well, I think they analysed the I had to do a cheek swab of her and stuff, and
Okay.
but she's come back with a bunch of like relatives through the platform, and all of them are like 15%, and they're all German Shepherds. So there's clearly some like common lineage in there with a German Shepherd. But yeah, she's
Nice.
just woken up.
Let's dive into more about like the work that you do at F1, I guess.
Mm.
And obviously a lot of people would be interested in this because it's one of the most I think it's one of the best sports out there.
Yeah, I agree.
You know,
Not that
it's
surprised.
I watch every single race. For me, I'm a huge fan. So I mean, for those that would be listening, I mean, can you give like a sneak peek behind the curtains, I guess, of a day to day for a DevOps engineer behind what does that look like
It's
at F1?
it's really varied, if I'm honest, and that's I suppose part of the joy of it. But yeah. So one of the most unusual things about F1 as a business, I think, is the cadence of the change freeze. So because we obviously, we're putting on an average of a race every other week. From the Wednesday of the race event till the Sunday after the race, we're in change freeze. Nothing is allowed to be changed unless something is broken. There's a bug fix, an emergency change, whatever. So we have this really sort of unusual cadence, especially in like a double header or a back to back, of these like incredibly tiny sprints where we have to just get all the stuff done and then get it out the door. And then there'll just be whole stretches of time where we can't touch production at all, which is quite bizarre. But it does mean that when it's busy, it's really really busy. And the other surprising one, I think, is the summer break and the winter break are our busiest times because
Oh, really?
yeah, that's when
I guess that's the development stages,
yeah,
right?
that's when we're allowed to break stuff. So that's when all the big changes go in, when all the big pieces of work have to happen. But yeah, supporting the event is incredible. So we have a huge remote facility in Biggin Hill, where I'm based, which is where all the sort of technology center. It's our technology center. It's where all the stuff for the event happens on the day. So my boss likes to tell the story of pre-COVID, we used to ship effectively 2 data centers around the world to every race. And when COVID hit and suddenly we had, 300 engineers sat there going, well, what do we do for 3 months? They had a long-term plan that they were going to bring one of them into a remote site. And it was supposed to be like a 2-year piece of work or something. But during COVID, when, there was no change freeze, there was no anything, they crunched that down into about 3 months. And so since COVID, we only send 1 data center around now. And if you see the place on a race day, it's incredible. There's, hundreds of people sat at, all these different screens monitoring the telemetry that's coming in, or the camera feeds, or the, you've got the production booths along one side with the commentators in them doing commentary. It's honestly, it's incredible. And the logistics behind everything that goes on.
It's crazy how it works, isn't it?
It's wild.
Crazy when you think about it. But that's really cool. I mean, you obviously you guys have got like a very sort of well-known partnership with AWS. I know you mentioned that before, and I guess a lot of the analysis during the races that they show, they've got like the AWS figures and whatnot.
Yeah.
I mean, do you get much involved within sort of the partnership and
yeah, so we have a joint technical fund, for want of a better phrase, where there's a siloed pot of money for coming up with cool innovations to work on with AWS. So we have every couple of several times a year, we'll kick off a big project to do something exciting or something new, something different that we haven't done before. The most recent one was that RCA tool I was telling you about, which has actually proven itself incredibly useful for a few different things. But yeah, so the day to day is super varied. Like I say, like we work with the timing teams, we work with the software team, we work with the quality department. We work with teams across the business doing everything from AI tooling to pipelines to building Python frameworks to build. We get involved in so many different parts of the business that and so many different sort of disciplines that it's really fun because it's so varied.
I guess it's quite rewarding as well, right? Because you're having an input
really
into
cool. Like you say,
something that's very successful, isn't it?
Yeah, and when you see that little, powered by AWS graphic pop up
Yeah.
or something, you're like, I
I did
didn't
something
build
there.
it, but that wouldn't be there without us.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
See, it also gives you a whole different appreciation for when you see things happening on screen, you could be like, interesting. If one of the graphics goes a bit wonky or something, you're like, that system.
Yeah. You're working without even knowing, right?
Yeah, like, I don't need that. I just want to enjoy the race. But no, it is amazing. It's a really cool place. It's a weird hybrid of sort of sprint, like moving fast, sort of almost startup like in terms of got to get stuff done, got to get stuff, and then sort of big
Sure.
enterprise like change management and sort of. So it's an interesting puzzle. It's completely unlike anywhere I've ever worked. But
Best of both worlds. That's the best way you can
yeah,
describe it, right?
yeah, I think there's a lot of culture still to win over, but we're making good headway as well. So
Nice. I was going to say to you, so from your perspective, I mean, what does success look like for you and your team, I guess, from that technical and cultural perspective, I guess. So yeah, what does that look like for you?
so for us, like I say, we don't because we don't have to support because largely our involvement is done before change freeze. If everyone's managed to build their software, get the software deployed, get the configs out and everything ahead of change freeze, we're all right for the race itself. But those things still get evaluated. So all issues that happen during the event get tracked in a big Jira board, and they have to be investigated and explained, and you have to sort of put your root cause in. So for us, for example, if we've done a transformation piece to automate deployments of configs for a particular application or whatever, if they then don't if their number of errors trends down ideally to 0, then that's a huge success for us because we've made a meaningful impact to the sort of reliability of service and the broadcast. And same with if we can enable the software guys to get their stuff deployed more quickly, more smoothly, with more testing and all that kind of stuff, then ultimately we've almost got a bit of the SRE side of things going on as well, where ultimately the single most important thing for the company is obviously the broadcast. So anything we can do to improve reliability, improve confidence in systems, improve troubleshooting, and anything like that. Those are our big KPIs, our big metrics that we try and track and make sure are heading in the right direction. So
Yeah, I think it's definitely. I mean, I've watched it for years and years. I used to go to like Silverstone with my dad like every year when I was younger, and uh, even if you think like how it's evolved over the years, it's
oh
crazy.
yeah,
Say over the
it's
last 20 years, like
yeah,
honestly, it's crazy. So it's even crazier to think what like it would look like in the next,
yeah,
not even 10 years, in the next few
yeah.
years.
Some of the systems coming down are certainly technologically super interesting. Well, obviously, probably not ones I can talk about, but like there are some just the the technology and the level of engineering behind it all are pretty insane.
Yeah.
Um,
Look, if you this one's a little bit sort of out there, I guess, in that sense. But if you had to start again with your journey at say F1, would you change or refine anything in the DevOps space from your
as
side?
in, as in what since I
Since
started, or as
since
in
you've started, yeah, yeah.
okay.
Is there
On,
anything you think that could have or you would have sort of changed, I guess, from your side?
I might have picked a different tool here or there, but I think fundamentally, I think we've done a really good job. When I first started, there was no real sort of DevOps culture, and we've sort of slowly over time, we've gone, oh look, we've built this cool platform,
Yeah,
some cool things it does, and the devs have gone, oh that's nice. Oh, could we do that? And slowly sort of. I think it's really important when you're trying to win people over. If you just you start with little steps, little sort of encouragements, little carrots to dangle or whatever. You don't hit them with the stick, you dangle the carrot. And then, once they start to get buy-in and once they start to see some of the benefits, then these things sort of start to snowball. And we're finding that more and more, we're just getting busier and busier as more and more of these teams sort of start to realize that, there's things we can automate, there's things we can build for them, there's Python libraries we could give them access to, there's, all this kind of stuff where actually we're making a huge difference across the business. So
yeah.
I don't think there's anything specific I would change. Like I say, I might have chosen,
You've done well.
yeah,
You've evolved the system, so
yeah,
the
it's been
DevOps culture is
a
getting better. So
slow, yeah, it's been a slow progression. because everything is in a large enterprise. But I think we're really starting to build a lot of momentum now, and I think we're doing amazing stuff like week in, week out. So I'm really proud of what we've done. I think it's really, really impressive, especially when you look back, because you sort of, when you're in the thick of it, you don't really think about all these little
Yeah.
incremental improvements, and then you look back and go, crikey, 3 years ago, you know, everything was completely different, and we've made a huge
Well,
impact. So
it's always like that, isn't it? It's just that reflection part is sometimes is it's needed to see how far you've come,
yeah, I think it
which
is.
is
But
which is really cool.
yeah,
Look, from your part, I mean, for anyone that is, I guess, trying to get into the tech space, so trying to get into DevOps and that side of things, what sort of advice would you give them for those that are beginning their journey?
tinker, just tinker with things. I think every good engineer has a home lab for good reason. I think my home lab was partially responsible for me getting this job. The tools that you like, the tools you read about, the tools you're interested in, if you're not using them in your day job, have a play with them like on your own. I know that's slightly counter to what I was saying about burnout, but I think that balance is the key. And if you're interested in a tool, just play with it. I hadn't used Kubernetes at all before I started at F1 really, except on my home lab because I was interested in Kubernetes. I wanted to understand it. So I spun up a K3S cluster on my home lab. And then during the interview, my boss said, what are your Kubernetes skills like? And I sort of said, well, being honest, I've not used it in production, but I have it on my home lab and I've used it to deploy a bunch of tools for myself. And so I've got a good understanding of it. I just haven't, I think, even just showing that level of interest and level of curiosity, I think goes a long way as well as giving yourself that experience. So I think that would be my number one tip is just
Experiment.
find something to experiment on, an old laptop or whatever.
That's the beauty of it, isn't it? It's like you break it, fix it, like
Yeah, exactly.
just experiment with it.
I was
It's
I was playing with something the other night and I completely broke my own cluster and then had to. I was like, oh, I'm going to finally get some tinkering time, and I sort of started hacking away, and then oh bugger, what have I done? And realised I blocked the Kubernetes API by mistake, and I completely bricked the cluster. And I had to sort of then go in and fix it. I was like, why have I, But hey, just breaking stuff and playing with it and understanding what you've done and then working out how to fix it is such a valuable exercise that if you're not getting to do it in your day job, I think play with the tools that everyone's using because there are ways to play with them all that are incredibly accessible. So
Nice, awesome. And the way we finish off, Jack, like I mentioned to you already, but it's we've got a question for yourself from our last guest, which is Matteo, and after that we'll get you to ask a question for the next guest. So the question from Matteo was, what do you love and hate the most about your job?
gosh, what do I love and hate the most? I would say I don't want to give a cop out answer, but I love the variety of projects we get to work on. I think as a team, the wider cloud team and stuff, we're really good at you know looking at new tools, finding the use cases, finding the value. So I think, yeah, I love that side of things. Things I hate, probably a boring answer, but the amount of training we have to do in terms of fire alarms and safety training and infosec training and all that kind of stuff. I understand the value of it, but I think I get about one a week, and it's just a little bit too much. So,
Yeah, good stuff. And what's your question to the next guest?
oh gosh, oh, what? That's a very good question.
Could be absolutely anything.
Um, what is a? Trying to think of how to word it. What is a common sort of pitfall you've seen people people fall into, and how would you avoid it? I think something along those lines. So, what's a common trap that you've seen catch people out, and how would you how should they avoid it?
How to overcome it,
Yeah,
overcome up with it. Okay, good stuff. Awesome. Look, Jack, it was lovely to speak to you.
and you.
Really enjoyed our chat, and thank you for your time.
No worries. Thank you.